A Dutch Grand Prix that just kept getting more dramatic included a big swing in the Formula One title battle between Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, with Piastri's lead going up to 34 points with Norris's unexpected DNF. So, John Noble, very, very big, if obvious question to start. Is it all over?
It's never over till it's over, but this is a big, big blow to Lando's championship hopes. Very similar to what happened to Lewis Hamilton in 2016. Let's remember Malaysia. He had an engine failure while leading, and that proved decisive in the title chase. I think Lando's difficulty is there haven't been big point swings this year. It's very hard to cut down any gap to Oscar. They've been kind of chipping away. You get the swings to first and second. So to lose 25 points in one race is going to take an awful lot to get back into this title fight.
Yeah, the only other swing that we really had in this battle was right at the very start of it in Australia, if you remember, when the rain came down. Norris and Piastri both slid off the road, but it was Piastri who paid the biggest price because he ended up spinning, trying to get back going again, and lost a shed load of points as Norris ended up winning that opening race. Norris didn't even get any consolation points in this one, obviously. So first and foremost, really, John, before we get more into that title battle, the ramifications, and also what Norris said, because that was very interesting, so stick around for that. What do we know about what happened? Was this just a good old-fashioned engine failure?
At the moment, we don't have any official confirmation. Lando said there'd been no warning from the team beforehand. The first he knew about it was some kind of smoke in the cockpit, the smell of something in the cockpit, and then almost instantly the car shut down. What often happens in situations is sensors pick up something wrong and they will shut the engine down before damage is done. So what we don't know yet is, was any damage done to the engine? Was this an engine problem itself? Andrea Stella said tonight they've got some early indications from data, but nothing confirmed. So they're not sure yet whether it's a chassis, which means the McLaren side of things, or a power unit, which is the Mercedes side of things. So I think we're going to have to wait for the car to be examined properly, even HPP to look at the power unit to work out what's happened. So all indications point to some kind of oil leak, but we don't know where in the system it was. Was this an engine situation? Was this a chassis integration situation? That answer may not come for a few days yet.
It's so rare to see failures in modern F1. It's not that it doesn't happen. That there might even be, on average, one or two every single Grand Prix. It feels less rare than that, honestly speaking, anecdotally. And such a shame that it intervenes not only in the title battle, obviously, but the end of a gripping Grand Prix that took a little bit of a while to really burst into life, but was tense all along. And as is always the case with Norris and Piastri at the moment, now that McLaren really have got that car absolutely singing as the season's gone on, it just denied us a grandstand finish between the two of them. Looked like it was gonna go Piastri's way though, and Norris didn't really take any consolation from his race engineer saying how fast he was this weekend. Obviously it was a very big thing that swung it for Piastri at the very end, with Norris not finishing at all, but up until that point it had been a weekend of very fine margins that Piastri just kept coming out on top of, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was nip and tuck all weekend. Lando had started on the front foot. That's brilliant through qualifying, and Piastri, I think it was kind of trying to put the pieces together of a lap. We saw this pattern of him being very quick in the first sector, then it fell away over the lap, and I think he slowly got there. And by qualifying, there was virtually nothing in it. I think Lando talked a little bit about this, about potentially a gust of wind just on Piastri's final lap, just giving him a tiny little boost down the start-finish straight. Maybe a tow as well from Hadjar gave him a few thousandths. And that ultimately is what decided it. Track position here is king. If you're on the same strategy, you can't really overtake in identical cars. So I think no matter Norris's speed, it was unlikely he was going to get past Piastri unless he forced him into a mistake. But Oscar doesn't make many mistakes. So second place was on. So to lose those 18 points is a massive blow.
It's a big thing for Piastri to have won this race in the way that he did. Not just because he's got that big points buffer now, but this was obviously one of the few tracks last year where Norris absolutely buried him, and Piastri stopped that happening this year. He's been right on Norris's tail or beating him at the circuits where he was well adrift last year. So psychologically, points-wise, a big weekend for Piastri. And you mentioned that, you know, this was one where it was so fine a margin that unless you did something drastically different, probably wasn't going to make a difference. The way the race played out stopped Norris being able to do that because it locked everything into quite straightforward strategic thinking, stopping on the same laps because you had to get the stop in when the safety car was out or whatever. So, yeah, really unfortunate for Norris. And the other thing, which you've alluded to and Norris has alluded to, is that the way that Piastri's driving making this points deficit up is going to be a really tall order. It's still perfectly in Norris's control. The simple thing that he needs to do is go out and win every race, basically. He doesn't even have to quite do that, and he can still be world champion. But I've got his quote here, one of the things he said after the race. He's strong, he's quick in every situation, every scenario. It's hard to get things back on someone who's just good in pretty much every situation. He said it's harder for him and put him under more pressure, but it's almost a big enough gap now that I can just chill out about it and just go for it. So is this now easier for Norris in a way, mentally, psychologically, or realistically, because of that points gap, is it harder than ever for him?
I think undoubtedly, if you offered him, do you want the 25 points, 18 points you had today or not? He would take the points, because at the end of the day, points are prizes, and that's better. But equally, there is now a situation where there is nothing to lose. There's a situation where there's not expectations every weekend that he's knuckling down for a title fight that's in his hands. It's not going to have the intensity, and that may give him a freedom. That may allow him just to push the margins a little more, and may allow him to, not get so tense, not get so het up about things. So maybe we'll see a different approach from Lando, and the one who's actually now tense is Oscar, because it's all in his hands. This is now his championship to lose, and sometimes the drivers, that can be quite a difficult position to be in.
Yeah, I struggle to see a scenario now where Piastri lets it slip, or what I should say is I struggle to see that scenario sort of coming to life. There are obviously many ways it can happen. Exactly what's happened to Norris here could happen to Piastri at Monza next time out. We're going to a very power sensitive circuit. It's ripe for stretching the engine to the limit and there being a problem. So it could happen, or Norris could go out and win the vast majority of the races that are left. But when you look at the evidence of the season so far, how they've been performing, how high a level Piastri has stepped up to, the most likely thing now, he was already a slim favourite because there were fewer races to go than had been run and he had the points advantage, but he's now close to being the overwhelming favourite unless something goes against him. So yeah, it's in Norris's control, but I feel like he needs intervention from elsewhere now. He needs Piastri to mess up, he needs someone else to get involved and start taking points off him, or he needs bad luck to befall Piastri in the way that it did Norris. Joining Norris on the podium in Piastri's absence was Max Verstappen, who finished second, and also Isaac Hadjar, shout out to him, first F1 podium for the Racing Bulls driver. It was a really dramatic Grand Prix, which is, well, I was going to say one of the reasons why we've got Hadjar on the podium. Actually, he was up there at the front throughout. Let's get on to just quickly one of those dramatic talking points, John. Carlos Sainz, very, very, very unhappy to get a penalty for the incident that involved Liam Lawson, the other Racing Bulls driver, when both were running in the points. You heard from Sainz, you spoke to him. How angry is he?
Yeah, very angry, very disappointed, very frustrated, and just asking a ton of questions. As a GPDA director, he's well aware of racing rules and guidelines and how you work with the FIA, but he is completely lost to explain about why being on the outside of a driver, fine, you don't have the right to the corner according to the guidelines, but why does he get a penalty? He doesn't understand it. He suggests it sets quite a bad precedent now going forward, because it basically gives a green card to drivers on the inside to drive into those on the outside and get them a penalty. So he's going to see the stewards tonight. We're not sure yet if that's taken place, but I'm sure we'll hear from Carlos maybe tonight or maybe during the week about how those discussions went. But he definitely wants answers. He wants to know, what is the situation now? How can we go racing like this? Because it's one thing to get squeezed out and have to take avoiding action as part of racing, as part of the guidelines. It's quite another to be given the penalty when you've been driven into.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel really strongly about this, and pretty much entirely on Sainz's side. Not to say that I think Lawson should have got a penalty. I'm fine with it being brushed aside and said it's one of those things that can happen. Sainz is, live by the sword, die by the sword if you try and move on the outside. But I do think actually Lawson was more responsible for it than Sainz was. And the FIA explanations so far, both publicly with the stewards report and also privately, don't really seem to add much detail beyond, well, the guidelines say this, so we've given him a penalty. First of all, you don't have to give a penalty to every single incident, even if there is contact. And second of all, if we're going to apply the guidelines that in such a binary manner, then Sainz is right. It sets a very worrying precedent for racing, because there was always this little bit of wiggle room in the way the guidelines are that basically, if you're the car on the inside and you're ahead going into the corner, you can basically crash into the other car. That was always implied. We've almost got evidence here that you can have contact with the car on the outside if you're the car on the inside, and you won't get punished for it. And that's a step on from what we've seen before, where you could kind of do whatever you wanted as the car on the inside. You could crowd them out, run them out of room, not leave them any space. This is an escalation beyond that, so unhappy about that. But John, one final thing. Another controversial clash, or clash anyway, in this race, Charles Leclerc and Kimi Antonelli. That one was a bit more straightforward to rule on, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think the stewards deemed that Kimi had understood. Obviously, made a move on Charles at the banked corner. It didn't pay off. I think Charles was slightly frustrated. He didn't vent his anger very much afterwards, but you could sense the annoyance at another position gone. But it's been a scrappy weekend for Kimi Antonelli, off an FP1. Derailed his weekend. Then he had the incident with Charles and the pit lane speeding penalty. Lots of things ramping up for him in his rookie season. Toto Wolff's defended him tonight, saying these are the kind of the wild weekends they were anticipating. But I think on a weekend when Isaac Hadjar has shown that rookie and fight strongly at the front, make no mistakes, and finish on the podium, doesn't cast a good light on Kimi.